Hi friends, welcome back to 3 Barrow Farm and to week 3 of the No Spend Pantry Challenge. I've got my basket here to go shopping in the deep freezers. It's a very rainy day. It's been raining since yesterday and it just won't stop raining. I'm not only out here doing the shop in the freezer, but I'm also doing the lamb checks and checking on all the animals. So I'm off to do that first and then I'll get on with this. But because it is raining, I'm going to utilize having the fire on all the time, and I'm going to make a bone broth, which is going to be cooking for many days, and get some bread baked and make some snacks and things which we don't really have on hand, and my kids are starting to complain about just having nuts and dried fruits. So let's see what I get done this week for the challenge.
So I pulled out quite a few things from the deep freezer in the shed, including these stewed fruits in these containers here. So we will use these hopefully for some desserts. I've also got some sliced zucchini and a big bag of mango. And I've also got this massive bag of bones that I just put in the freezer when I cook meat. And I'm going to do some bone broth with that. And I've got some tomatoes and some Egyptian walking onions. And then I've brought in this carrot dip, which we all don't like. So I'm going to try and find some ways of using the carrot dip and a bag of homegrown carrots as well. Here are all the chickpeas left from last week's cooking of chickpeas. They need to go into the freezer, and I've got some set aside for the house freezer and fridge to use over the week. And here's some leftovers of the curry that I made the night before with tuna. As you all know, I love leftovers, so there will be plenty of leftovers for lunch. So we had this for lunch today, and the fire was going as usual at the moment, and we were going to see quite a few days of rain. So I decided to do a bone broth with these 2 bags of bones that I've been keeping in the freezer, waiting for the winter time when I have the wood fire going for many days at a time. So I like to cook my bone broth for at least 3 days. I've filled the pot with water, and this will cook down over time. The bones will eventually sit under the water there. There's nothing like standing right next to the fire while it's cold outside. And I've been staying on top of baking bread, which has been fantastic. Of course, this winter I have been doing wheat breads that have been easily thrown into the wood fire. However, this week I did have a little bit of difficulty with timing and the temperature of the oven. So you will see that I did check these loaves a few times and they weren't quite ready. So I had to keep checking on them quite often this day. Normally, when I have the fire going at a regular sort of temperature, I can put on a timer and the bread's usually finished by then. But I can't cook my gluten-free loaves at the moment because we cannot use the electric oven. If you're new here, we live off-grid, so we rely on the wood fire oven to cook our food and heat our house and water in the winter time. So we have to get the fire very hot to heat our water. I have finally decided to start making some pies. Now, I have this pie filling that I bottled up in autumn with our nashis, because we had a huge amount of nashis from our one nashi tree in our garden. So I decided to make a pastry. However, I put it in the fridge and I forgot about it. I got busy the next couple of days, so you will see that pie later on in this video. And this night I decided to just make it easy and pull out a pasta sauce from the freezer. I have got lots of pasta sauces still in the freezer, so as I'm trying to use up what's in the freezer, we're having some easy meals, which makes it easier to bake bread and do other things around the house when we've got a meal all sorted. Now here I am putting the bread in for the first time. It wasn't quite ready. And here I'm testing the bread again. That loaf was not ready, but this loaf sounded hollow when I tapped on the bottom of it. So that one stayed out. So I'm cooking up some pasta. We do have quite a lot of pasta in our pantry. So these sauces are seeing us through the busy times and making it a lot easier for me to keep on top of things while I still recover from my surgery. And so I'm putting some of the carrot dip in this sauce to see if I can mask the taste of the carrot dip, and it worked fine. My kids and my husband didn't recognize anything, and it just added a little bit of flavor to the sauce that we already had, and as you can see, it's eaten all up. My youngest daughter pulled these apples out of the fridge in the shed, and that reminds me I need to go out there and clean the fridge and turn it off because we have finished with all the fruit in there. And she made a apple cake, which is a Thermomix recipe, which we all very much enjoyed for dessert that day. We had it with yogurt and it was really delicious. I think she should make some more of those because we have the rest of the apples sitting in our house fridge. And here we are the next day. Now my eldest daughter woke up with a sore throat, so I have pulled the fire cider out of the fridge and I've added some tinctures to the mix as well. So we're all going to have a little bit of fire cider this morning. And of course, as usual, I'm having my smoothie. And because the fire is still going and my bone broth is still cooking, I decided to make a porridge and to cook up some of the plums that I had bottled. So that was a very yummy, warming breakfast to have. And here is the bone broth bubbling away. I had some leftover porridge from breakfast, so I decided to warm up this jar of coconut oil, and I'm just tipping out the rest into this, and I'll add some butter in as well to this mix, but I thought I'd just use up that tiny little bit left over in the coconut oil jar. So I just put the jar into the oven and it warmed up enough for me to pour it out, and I'm adding in some honey. I'm going to make porridge biscuits. Now, these are always just a throw together, hope for the best sort of recipe. And I try to add enough dry mix. So I'm adding this self-raising gluten-free flour that I had on the shelf. And here's the butter. I should have added the butter before I added the flour, but never mind. And I should have also let it cool down quite a bit before I added these chocolate chips that were left in this bag in our pantry. So they melted down a little bit because the mixture was quite hot. But I did manage to get some onto a greased tray. And then here is my leftover lunch. So I'm heating it up on the oven, and here it is all heated up. I've got some roasted turnips with some leftover curry and some cabbage salad. And the cookies turned out quite nicely. So we had them after our lunch, and by the end of the day, there was only one left. So I think they were a success. For dinner, my youngest daughter made a cauliflower cheese with a very small cauliflower from our garden, and I made a chickpea salad, and it was really yummy and warming. Okay, on the next day, I only managed to record dinner. So we had a soup that was frozen in our deep freezer. And then the day after this, I woke up again and filled those little cups with the fire cider and the tincture. And I've also got my smoothie all ready to consume as normal. And then, of course, you guessed it, we had leftovers. The rest of the curry got consumed by me and some of the family. Now, here's that pastry that I had forgotten about, or I was too busy to attend to it, and it survived just fine in the fridge. I let it warm up a bit because it was quite hard, and then I rolled it out, and I'm just putting a little bit of flour on top because it was quite sticky. And then I cut off the excess, which I used to make some decorations on top of the pie. This pastry ended up being blind baked in the oven, and then I put the nashi filling on top and the rest of the pastry on top as well. The design is not as fantastic as I envisage. I'm not very creative with pastry. And for dinner, we had some leftover chickpea salad still, so I decided to do just some pesto pasta to go with the salad. So I did my newfound trick that I've been doing ever since I learnt about it, which is putting a bit of the water from the pasta being cooked into the sauce, and this helps the sauce stick to the pasta. And it's a fantastic tip, which I'm really grateful for knowing now. And here's the pie. It looks lovely and it tasted really nice as well. So I'm really grateful to have these little pie filling jars in the pantry, and I will probably be making a few more in the near future. Everyone thoroughly enjoyed it. And the next day I'm having leftovers from the night before, so the pasta and the chickpea salad. And for dinner, I decided to use a small pasta sauce container and these lentils that I cooked a couple of weeks ago, I believe, or last week. And of course, I'm baking more bread. With the lentil sauce that I made, we had rice. This is one of our staples that we love having, lentil sauce with rice. And here's the bread that I baked the night before. I baked 2 loaves, but we already had the loaves that I baked previously, so I decided to freeze these 2 loaves as extras. I'm just trying to make bread whenever possible. And I've got leftovers the same as last night. And then my daughter made nachos for dinner, so we consumed the whole entire tray of nachos. The next day flew by and I didn't get to record any meals, but I did make this pesto pasta again for dinner. I also just lightly steamed this broccoli. It would be ideal to defrost it before I steamed it, but never mind. And we also cooked up some loin chops on the barbecue from our lambs. So that was a very nice meal. Everyone enjoyed having a bit of our lamb aside our vegetables that we've grown. Thank you so much for following along for week 3. I look forward to coming back again next week. See you next time, friends.